My boss is my wife's dad, and the day he cut my salary in half, I was standing at the vending machine, trying to decide whether I could still afford a coffee I didn't even want. If you've never had your income turned into a leash, let me tell you, it doesn't start with a screaming match. It starts with a favor, then a joke, then a reminder that you owe someone for the life you're living. By the time you notice the leash, you're already wearing it to family dinners. That's the part Reddit usually hates. How long you can sit in something that feels wrong and still call it normal. I'm 32, a project engineer at a mid-sized construction company. On paper, everything looked solid. Stable salary, medical, car allowance, decent projects. The company's logo is on half the office buildings in our city, and the owner, general director, and god of that glass box is my father-in-law, Mark. If you meet him at a barbecue, he's charming. Big handshake, bigger stories. He'll tell you how he's started with nothing and built all this by working harder than everyone else. At the office, he walks like he owns the oxygen. People laugh louder at his jokes. They step aside before he even turns the corner. When I joined 5 years ago, I wasn't his son-in-law. I was just another engineer with good references and a boring CV. I came from a smaller firm where I'd already hit the ceiling. No growth, same renovation projects, same clients. Mark's company was a step up, and I got in the old-fashioned way. Interview, test assignment, second interview. Only after I signed the contract did his daughter, Emma, walk into the office with a coffee tray for her dad and stop when she saw me. "Grant," she said. We'd gone to the same college. Not close, but close enough to remember each other's faces. By the end of that week, we'd had lunch twice. By the end of the year, we were engaged. Everyone called it a fairy tale. Mark called it, "Funny how life works out," and slapped me on the back like he'd arranged the whole thing himself. That's when the narrative shifted. At meetings, he'd introduce me to clients as my son-in-law first, our project engineer second. At family dinners, his brothers would wink and say, "You picked the right bride, huh? Straight into management." Emma would roll her eyes and squeeze my hand under the table, but she never actually corrected them. "You know it's not true," she'd tell me when we were alone. "I know," I'd say. "Then why does it bother you?" Because when 10 people repeat the same joke, it's no longer a joke. It's an instruction. I knew how to work. I wasn't a genius, but I was the guy who noticed the details other people skipped. Load limits on slabs, delivery timelines, the real, not pretty flaws in project documentation. After a couple of years, they trusted me with complex sites. Key clients called me directly, bypassing sales. Once, after we handed over a business center on time, one of the clients said in front of everyone, "If it weren't for him, you'd still be fixing issues." I saw Mark tense. The smile stayed on his face, but his eyes went colder. "We're a team," he said. "Nobody here is irreplaceable." I chalked it up to his usual need for control. At home, work seeped into everything. If someone at dinner complained about money, Mark would look at me. "Well, you don't get to complain, kid. Where would you even be without us, huh?" Without us meant without me and my daughter. I'd usually say something neutral, like, "Probably still wearing a hard hat." Laughter, jokes, toasts. And something inside me creaked every time. Emma always asked me not to make scenes. "Dad's just like that," she'd say. "He doesn't realize when he goes too far. Don't start anything. We're doing fine." "We're doing fine" meant, let's not step on that landmine. The last 6 months at the company had been rough. Competition increased. A couple of projects went to other firms. Some subcontractors screwed up their deadlines. Mark was angrier more often. Meetings got longer, and culprits were found quicker. Officially, we were told to tighten belts, expense cuts, frozen bonuses, minimum travel. Unofficially, it looked like a constant hunt for scapegoats. I started coming home later and talking less. Emma noticed. "You're drained," she said one evening while I chewed pasta without tasting it. "Work's on fire," I said. "Talk to Dad. He listens to you." I laughed. "He listens when I agree with him." She frowned. You're being unfair to him. Funny word, unfair. People use it when you stop being silent for the first time. Still, I kept my head down and did my job, closed issues, went to sites on weekends, pulled subcontractors through my own contacts. I wasn't trying to prove myself to the family. I was just doing what I was paid to do. That morning, when everything started, it all looked normally awful. Gray hallway, smell of cheap coffee and paper, emails from a subcontractor who didn't deliver materials, and from a client already asking why we were behind schedule. Mark and Cece everywhere. I made myself instant coffee, looked at the cup, and thought maybe I should switch to water. Just then, Mark's office door cracked open, and his assistant, Lisa, poked her head out. "Grant, he's waiting for you," she said. "He told me to send you in as soon as you're free." I checked the time. 9:20. "Did he ask if I'm free?" I said automatically, too tired to filter the sarcasm. Lisa twitched the corner of her mouth. He snapped at her too, and shrugged. Better not make him wait today. This wasn't like the usual "come by later." There was something like a warning in her voice, the tone people use when talking about someone who is already looking for a reason to explode. As I walked toward his office, I passed the open workspace. People pretended to be busy, but I felt the stares. News spreads fast. When the director's in a bad mood and looking for someone to unload on, even the printer seems quieter. I paused for a second at the glass partition and saw my reflection. Regular guy in a button-down, tired eyes, early gray at the temples. The lucky guy who married up. "You're still an engineer," I told myself silently. "Not furniture." Mark's door was half open, but I knocked anyway. From inside, yes. I took a slow breath, tightened my grip on the folder with my latest report, and pushed the handle down. Mark didn't look up when I walked in. That was the first sign. The second sign was that he wasn't alone. Two senior managers, Paul from finance and Harper from operations, sat across from his desk. Both avoided eye contact with me, which meant they already knew something I didn't. "Close the door," Mark said. His voice had that tightness he used when he'd already chosen the villain of the day. I shut the door and stood. He gestured to the empty chair like it was an inconvenience. "Sit." I sat. He pulled up a spreadsheet, turned the monitor slightly toward me. A red highlighted line blinked on the screen like a warning light. "You see this?" he asked. It was a minor cost deviation, $4,000 on a materials order that had to be adjusted after a supplier backed out. I'd already sent the corrective path last night. It was under control. "Yes," I said calmly. And as I explained in the report, Mark held up a finger. "Don't talk. Listen." That's when Paul and Harper adjusted in their seats, like they'd been rehearsing this silence. "This deviation," Mark said, tapping the screen, "is carelessness, a direct result of you not managing your team." "It's the first deviation in 8 months," I replied, "and it's already fixed. You're missing the point." His jaw tightened. "Your performance is slipping. Your attention to detail is slipping. And frankly, your attitude is slipping too." That one hung in the air. My attitude? "I've covered for you more times than you know," Mark continued, "and I'm done covering. I can't let family ties make me blind." There it was. Family ties. When he wanted control, I was family. When he wanted to punish, I was staff. "What exactly are you saying?" I asked. He leaned back, folding his hands like a judge about to deliver a sentence he enjoyed. "I'm cutting your salary by 50%. The silence hit like a dropped beam. I stared at him, then at Paul and Harper, neither of whom could look up, because they knew. They knew this wasn't about money or performance. It was about putting me back in my place. 50%? I repeated, making sure I'd heard correctly. "That's right," Mark said, "until you prove you can be trusted with responsibility again. Consider it recalibration." My mouth went dry. "Mark, this is disproportionate to the issue. A written warning would... A warning is for strangers," he snapped. "I'm giving you a lesson. You should be thanking me." I almost laughed, not out of humor, out of how surreal it felt to have a grown man talk to me like I was a teenager caught stealing gas money. "And what if I say no?" I asked quietly. He blinked once, slowly. "Then you're welcome to leave, but I don't think you will. No one else will offer you what you have here. Not with your skill set." My skill set? The same one he bragged about at conferences. The same one that saved 2 of his failed timelines last year. Mark tapped the printed paper on his desk. "Here's the updated salary contract. Sign it by Friday." He didn't dismiss me. He just looked past me as if I was already gone. I stood, nodded once to Paul and Harper, men who weren't bad people, just too afraid to interfere, and walked out. By the time I reached the stairwell, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from restraint. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before driving home. Emma was in the kitchen when I walked in, slicing vegetables, humming something soft. "How was your day?" she asked, without turning around. "Your dad cut my salary in half." She froze. Knife in midair. "What?" She turned. "Why?" He said I'm slipping, that I need to recalibrate. Her face shifted, not to shock, not to anger, but to concern the wrong way. "Grant, what did you do?" Something inside me sank. "That's your first question?" I asked. "What I did." "Baby, you know how he is," she said, stepping closer. "He wouldn't do that without a reason." "He did it to remind me who's in charge?" "That's not fair," she protested, though not at him, just at the situation. "Did you talk back to him?" "Talk back." "Emma," I said slowly, "do you think I deserve this?" She hesitated, and that hesitation was the longest second of the last 5 years. "I think maybe it's temporary," she said gently. "If you show him you're willing to improve." "I don't need to prove anything to him." "You're being emotional," she whispered. "Just don't escalate things. He's under a lot of pressure at the company. You know that. This isn't personal." But it was. She just couldn't see it. I stepped back. I'm going for a walk." "Grant, don't make this worse." I closed the door behind me and inhaled the cold air like it was the first honest thing I'd felt that day. I walked around the block twice before the thought settled. Heavy, cold, and painfully clear. Everyone assumed I had nowhere else to go. They believed Mark owned my future the way he owned his company. They believed I would swallow humiliation because that's what family does. But they didn't know the truth. Not yet. And the truth was already in motion long before Mark thought he'd broken me. I didn't go back inside after that walk. I sat in my car with the engine off, staring at the glow of the dashboard, and did something I hadn't done in months. I opened the email thread with Titan Edge Construction. Titan Edge was Mark's biggest competitor. Same city, same market, same clients. For years they'd been trying to poach the best people from his company, and for years Mark gloated about keeping the wolves off his lawn. He never knew I'd been talking to those wolves for 8 weeks. I scrolled to the latest message. An offer sheet. 3 times my former salary, full project autonomy, signing bonus, and a single line at the bottom. "We'd prefer you start before Q3. Quietly." They thought I was hesitating. I wasn't hesitating. I was weighing timing. But after that morning in Mark's office, timing stopped mattering. I typed 5 words. "Let's move forward. I'm in." They replied in 9 minutes. When I walked into Titan Edge's office the next day for the final onboarding meeting, it felt like stepping into oxygen after months of breathing someone else's air. The CEO, Hayes, shook my hand with the casual confidence of a man who didn't need to shrink others to feel tall. "You ready to build something real?" he asked. "More than ready." He slid a folder toward me. "First project. We've been stuck for months. I want your eyes on it. No politics, no family drama. Just work." Politics, family, drama. The 3 things I'd been drowning in. I opened the folder and froze. It was the Horizon Tower bid. The same multi-million tender Mark had been chasing for over a year. The one he claimed would secure the next decade. The one he told Emma's uncles about over Christmas, bragging that the contract was basically ours. Except Titan Edge had outmaneuvered the first round, and they needed a structural plan revision, the kind I specialized in, the kind Mark never let me do my way. "You can crack this?" Hayes asked. I studied the blueprints, the weak points, the load distribution errors, the sloppy design fix someone on Mark's team had tried and failed. I looked up. "I can do more than crack it. I can win it." Hayes grinned. "Good. Start today." And I did. The next 2 weeks felt like stepping into the storm with armor Mark never gave me. I rebuilt the tower plan from scratch. Safer, cheaper, faster. Titan Edge's board loved it. The client loved it more. When they called with the final decision, Hayes put the phone on speaker. "The contract goes to Titan Edge," the client said. "Your revised plan decided it." Hayes looked at me and mouthed, "That's you." And just like that, the biggest project in the region slipped from Mark's fingers without him ever knowing who cut the rope. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Emma. "Dad's furious. Something big fell through at work. He's in a horrible mood. Just be patient with him, okay?" Be patient. Her family operated like weather systems. You weren't supposed to stop the storm, just stand still and let it hit you. I didn't reply. 2 days later, the chaos began. 3 engineers from Mark's company reached out to me privately. "Grant, you moved? Is it true you left? Do you have space for more people?" Word had gotten around. Someone at Titan Edge delivered an impossible blueprint, and Mark's directors were blaming each other like children fighting over a broken vase. The next day, I walked into Titan Edge and found Hayes in his office, with 3 more resumes on his desk. "Your old crew?" he asked. "Some of the best we had." "Do you want them?" I didn't even have to think. "Take them." By Friday, 7 people had left Mark's company. 7? And the thing about losing 7 people isn't the number. It's who leaves. 1 was his most reliable site manager. 1 was the head of procurement. 2 were engineers who hated meetings but loved deadlines. People who actually kept the company alive. That evening, Emma came into the living room holding her phone. "Why are people quitting?" she demanded. "Dad's losing it. He says someone sabotaged the Horizon Tower bid. He thinks there's a mole." I looked at her calmly. "There's no mole." "So what happened?" I didn't answer. She folded her arms. "Grant, don't play games." Games. Her family lived in a palace built entirely of them. I finally said, "Your father made a choice. So did I." She stared at me with growing panic. The kind that isn't about losing money, but losing control. "What did you do?" "Nothing he didn't do first." She paced, gripping her hair. "Grant, you're destroying him." "I'm not destroying anyone. I'm walking my own path. If he built everything on the assumption I'd never leave, that's not my problem." She stopped. "You're scaring me." And maybe for the first time, she understood that the quietest man in the room is the most dangerous, because he's the one who doesn't bluff. But the real shift happened the next morning. A message from one of Mark's directors popped up on my phone. "He knows it was you. He knows you took the team. He knows you won the bid. He's losing his mind." And then a second message. "He thought he owned you. He didn't think you'd ever walk away." I sat back in my chair, letting that sink in. Mark didn't hate that I left. He hated that I left without asking his permission. That afternoon, Hayes clapped me on the shoulder as we wrapped up work. "Your old boss will come after you," he said. "He'll try every angle. Threats, guilt, lawyers, ego." I nodded. "I know." "You ready for that?" I looked at the stack of plans on my desk, the humming office, the people who treated me like a colleague and not a pawn. I've never been more ready, and I believed that, because the truth was simple. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. I'd just stopped kneeling. And then came the quiet, the kind that doesn't ask for your attention but settles around you once the dust finally accepts where it's supposed to land. I woke up one Friday morning and realized something strange. No dread, no heaviness in the chest, no waiting for someone else's mood to decide the shape of my day. Just quiet. I made coffee the way I liked it. Too strong, slightly bitter. I stood by the kitchen window, sunlight cutting across the counter, and thought, this is what my life is supposed to feel like. But peace has a way of being interrupted by the people who can't stand the idea that you found it without them. Around noon, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring out. A minute later, a text buzzed. Grant, it's Emma. Please, can we talk? We hadn't spoken in almost 2 weeks, not since everything at Mark's company started collapsing. She kept messaging, sometimes angry, sometimes confused, sometimes sad, never consistent, always desperate. I typed back, come by at 6, just you. At 6:04 she knocked. When I opened the door, she looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just deflated, like someone had taken the scaffolding out from under her, and the structure finally revealed its cracks. She stepped inside slowly, taking in the house like it was a museum of a life she didn't recognize anymore. You removed my picture from the hallway, she said quietly. You removed yourself from the hallway, I replied. She flinched, then took a breath. Grant, Dad is ruining everything. The investors are panicking. People keep leaving. He says you blindsided him. He says you set him up. I didn't set him up, I said. I walked away. Everything after that was gravity. She sat at the edge of the couch, hands clenched. You hurt him. He hurt himself, I corrected. He just never expected the consequences to show up with my face? She swallowed hard. He wants to talk to you, to fix this. No, I said simply. He wants me to undo what I never did. She stared at the floor in silence. You're really not coming back? She whispered. Emma, I said softly, your father cut my salary in half to remind me he could. He humiliated me in front of his team because he thought I'd stay anyway. He used you to keep me quiet. He used me to feed his ego. He was stressed, she said, almost pleading. We're all stressed, I replied. The difference is what we do with it. Her voice trembled. But we can still save our marriage. I sat across from her, calm in a way she didn't understand. There was a moment, I said, after he cut my salary, when I waited for you to be on my side, not to fight him, just to stand with me. She closed her eyes. You didn't, I continued. You asked what I did wrong. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. A tear rolled down her cheek. She brushed it away fast, angry at herself for letting it show. You're choosing work over us, she said. I shook my head. No, I'm choosing respect over ownership. She looked up sharply, defensive, hurt. Are you saying I treated you like you belonged to my family? I'm saying your family never saw me as anything else. She tried again. Grant, don't throw away years. I'm not throwing anything, I said. I'm putting it down because it's too heavy to carry alone. Silence again, then quietly. What do you want from me? The truth? Nothing. But I didn't say that. It would have sounded cruel. Instead, I want peace, and I want a life that doesn't require me to shrink so others can feel big. Her voice cracked. And us? Us ended the day your father tried to own me and you let him. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded, accepting the answer she never wanted but always knew was coming. I'll pack my things, she whispered. I already did. They're in the spare room. She stood, paused. Was any of it real? She asked. It was real, I said, and that's why I won't repeat it. She left without another word. The door closed gently, which somehow hurt more than if she'd slammed it. That weekend, the next blow landed, only not on me. The Horizon Tower announcement went public. Titan Edge had secured the contract. Local news, industry newsletters, LinkedIn posts. Mark's company wasn't mentioned anywhere except in a footnote, filtered through pity. 2 hours after the announcement, I got a message from one of his former directors. He's tearing the place apart. He says you embarrassed him. I didn't respond. Some storms you don't walk into. Some storms you watch from a safe, dry distance. On Monday, Hayes stopped by my desk. You hear the news? He asked. I heard. You're not gloating. I don't need to. Hayes studied me for a minute, then smiled. Good. Men who don't gloat are men who last. We went back to work. That night, for the first time in months, I sat on my porch with a beer and no phone in my hand. The sky was turning dark blue, that color right before stars appear. A dog barked somewhere down the street. Someone mowed their lawn a block away. Normal sounds, honest sounds, peaceful sounds. I thought about everything that had collapsed behind me. The company built on ego, the marriage built on convenience, the expectations built on silence. Let them fall. Some structures aren't worth reinforcing. When I finished the beer, I set the empty bottle on the railing, leaned back, and let the evening breeze hit my face. For the first time in a long time, the air felt like mine. My life felt like mine. And that was the whole victory. Not the contract, not the chaos, not the revenge everyone would assume I wanted. Just this. Quiet. Space. Control of my own future. Some people chase applause, some chase payback. Me, I chase peace. And I caught it.